for the calm before the storm.
I'll see you in Liechtenstein.
Lawsuit, I think, is misguided. In fact, the United States is the only country on the planet that has suggested that XRP is a security. The idea that XRP is a security, it has traded out there for 8 years. You know, it's kind of like, well, if it was a security, I guess we should have known that a long time ago.
Before we get into today's clip, I just streamed Trump's live keynote speech at Nashville, and you gotta listen to what he says here about Gary Gensler.
We're gonna let it grow. On day one, I will fire Gary Gensler and appoint a new SEC chairman. I didn't know he was that unpopular. Well, I didn't know he was that unpopular. Let me say it again. On day one, I will fire Gary Gensler. Whoa.
I cannot believe he just said that. Ladies and gentlemen, go ahead and smash that like button. It is incredible. But without further ado, let's get into today's episode that I had recorded. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of 24 Hours of Crypto. Let's get right into today's video. Buckle up, because we got a lot to cover in today's episode. We have Cantor Fitzgerald calling out USDC and Circle and how we should check their reserves. This is unbelievable. I can't even believe he said that. If you're not familiar with Cantor Fitzgerald, he helps oversee Tether's $39 billion in treasury holdings. And listen to him over here defending Tether. And don't forget, he calls out Circle, but I told you guys 5 months ago how Coinbase and Circle are targeting Tether and how they only wanted regulated coins to be interacting together. This is very, very important. So for Cantor to come out here at Bitcoin 2024 and call out USDC and defend Tether, he is scared, okay? And wait until I play you the clip. And then we're gonna go over a video by Vanik CEO, how he is pretty much hoarding crypto. They're behind the scenes, these guys are, it's slower adoption for retail, but they are hoarding it as much as they can. And then a video by Robbie Mitchnick talking about how we are in an educational phase. It's remarkable because that's how we have been telling you on this channel. It is very remarkable to hear it from them. But listen to what Cantor Fitzgerald says here. This is hilarious.
You to go check who can redeem with Circle and USDC. So Tether currently has $114 billion in reserves and another $11 billion of their own equity. That's $125 billion in assets, and they make sure they will take care of redeeming and backing one-to-one their reserves. They're the only one. They are U.S. Treasury backed. They have over 80,000 Bitcoin, so they are Bitcoin backed. They have 1,600,000 ounces of gold, so they are gold backed. There is one certain one-to-one backed digital dollar, and the name of that is USDT, and the name of that is Tether.
And it's really remarkable that in 2024, Tether still doesn't have a legitimate banking partner, but USDC does. And when Ripple comes out with their RLUSD, wait until they announce their banking partners and their custodians. It's going to be remarkable. But Tether in 2024 still doesn't have a legitimate banking partner, and they have always been in sketchy environments. Listen to what CoffeeZilla says here. He's done numerous videos on Tether. This is less than a 3-minute clip. I believe it's 2 minutes from a 45-minute video of his. But listen to what he says here, and it's regarding Tether and their banking history.
And even though they would never end up getting an audit, they decide to release a third-party attestation to show that they really had funds in reserve to back up They're tethers. 400 million tethers, in fact. But real quick note, an attestation is not an audit. An audit is a detailed forensic look at your accounts. An attestation can be as simple as a peek into your bank account to see that the money's there for a very short amount of time. This is what that attestation looked like. Now, at the time, many saw this as proof that Tether was in fact backed. It sure looked like they had $400 million in the bank, and everyone in crypto also had good reason to want to believe this as well. Everybody was making money, to put it frankly. After all, the more money Tether printed, the higher Bitcoin's price would rise. So it was in everyone's interest who held Bitcoin, or crypto for that matter, to keep the gravy train going. The only problem was, with this attestation, it turns out that some funny business was going on. See, it was found out later in a New York Attorney General investigation that something very shady had happened. Tether had convinced their third party to conduct his attestation or snapshot on a very specific day, September 15th, 2017, with Noble Bank. On September 14th, the day before that happened, Tether didn't have an account with Noble Bank. On the day of the snapshot or attestation, Tether opened a bank account where they supposedly had reserves all along, and Bitfinex, the other company, which they have nothing to do with, transferred $382 million into that account. That night, the attestation was done, and everything appeared in order. But no one knew that the funds supposedly backing Tether arrived there that day.
Suspiciously, the price of Bitcoin also suddenly fell by around 40 to 50% in the 2 weeks prior, leading some to believe that someone was selling bucket loads of Bitcoin. The price recovered immediately after the attestation and was the largest 4 hours of buying in Bitcoin's history on the same day.
Don't forget that only minutes ago, Phil Potter claimed that Tether and Bitfinex were completely separate entities.
But Tether is a completely segregated entity. Dollars are all there.
But now we find that they're actually commingling funds. But even this ruse didn't save Bitfinex and Tether completely.
It blows my mind that all this information is out there, but Tether is still thriving. You know, I want this whole ecosystem to do well. I'm not over here rooting for Tether's collapse, but there's so much evidence behind Tether and, illicit activities. It could only go on for so long. Regardless of how deeply they are penetrated within maybe governments or there's inside jobs going on within Tether and legal companies, again, it is not sustainable. And one day, it could take 3 years, 2 years, 10 years, but it will one day collapse without a doubt. And they know that. And that is why they even blocked me on X. Now take a listen to VanEck's CEO here talking about how he's over 30%. Over 30% in their terms is pretty much 40% in Bitcoin. That is insane.
I might not like this, but the way I look about Bitcoin is it's sort of like evolving and growing up, right? So maybe it's a teenager now. It's not fully formed because so many investor classes haven't really joined. I think the toughest allocation question I have, and I know a lot of individuals think about this as well, is why should I be selling Bitcoin? If I believe the Super Bull case, why am I constantly selling into this bull market? I mean, we just came out with research that talked about a price close to $3 million a coin in the scenario where it's adopted as a reserve asset globally. Now, that's very speculative, and that would be extreme adoption, but that's where professional investors like us in our day jobs say, oh no, you've got to do mean variance optimization, you can't hold too much. And everyone I meet at Bitcoin conferences owns way more in their own portfolio. And I always say, wait a minute, I always want to tell people what I'm doing personally because they should know, right?
Well, what are you doing personally?
I'm in like way over 30%.
Okay. Wow. All right. Actually,
I'm in like way over 30%.
Okay. Wow. All right.
Again, they're using that same perspective of how it's in its infancy stage, a teenager, a baby. This whole crypto ecosystem is in its baby stages at $2.4 trillion. Forget everything else. Focus on the utility tokens that are going to solve, real problems in this world. And that's where all the value is going to go to. Okay, right here, 2.3. We're going to see this at 2040, 80, 100, 200 trillion. It's remarkable to where we are right now. We are at ground zero. Take advantage of this or you're going to be kicking yourself forever. And now take a listen to Robbie Mitchnick here talking about how we are going through an educational phase right now with, especially with their private wealth partners. And I've told you guys since day one, this is what's going to happen. And it's happening just like as we said it would.
It's still quite early in their journey. When we talk about institutions, there's a long research, diligence, exploration process that requires a lot of education. We're on that journey with a lot of our institutional clients today. The wealth advisory space, the RIA channel, which is a subset of it, turned these on quickly. But when you think about the big wirehouses, the private bank platforms, none of them have really opened them up to their advisors yet. Typically that takes multiple years, and they're actually, in many cases, expediting those processes in light of what tremendous success there's been.
Incredible. Robbie Mitchnick couldn't have put it in better words. And they're not even in here yet. Like, we have seen nothing, and BlackRock, head of digital assets at BlackRock, is telling them the exact same thing. And going back to Project Agora, I got to bring this to your attention in terms of working within, regulated industries and being within the regulated guardrails. Project Agora, they called for participation from the private sector. They need some assistance. What they're trying to do is they're investigating how tokenized commercial bank deposits can seamlessly be integrated with tokenized wholesale central bank money on a public-private programmable core financial platform with the goal of enhancing the functioning of cross-border payments. And keep in mind, when you're going into a tokenized world, stablecoins are going to play a role. And it's going to have a crucial role. So, in order to be one of the participants and help them out here, you got to have a bank account relationship with one of the central banks. And take a look, right? Bank of Mexico, Bank of Japan, Bank of England. Tether doesn't have this. Just thinking, look at it from the bigger picture. Tether doesn't have any of this, but Ripple does. And it even says here, look at this, I feel like Ripple will override this. Ripple doesn't even really need bank accounts, even though they do have it. Having an account relationship with one of the participating central banks is not a requirement if the applicant is a critical service provider, e.g., for an example, international payment network. Wow, that points out to Ripple. You don't need to have, relationship with one of the central bank accounts if you're a critical payment provider, an international payment network. And that's what Ripple is, international payment network. That's just one of their use cases. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. And we will be back with another video.
We started building RippleNet with the thesis that crypto liquidity would eventually be able to support robust global payments, large payments. RippleNet was designed so that customers seeing the benefits of our fiat-based network could flip the switch to ODL once the market was mature enough. And this is exactly what's happening. Flip the switch.
I think what we're building has, it's solving a real problem. And I think all of the tokens, my advice to anybody would be, understand the utility. If there's real utility and there's real value being delivered to a real customer, there will be value in the token.